Welcome back. President Trump citing progress in U.S.-China trade talks as he calls a meeting of his top trade negotiators today. Michael Pillsbury is a senior fellow and director for China Strategy at the Hudson Institute. He is also a former assistant undersecretary for defense for President Reagan. Michael, it is good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria.
So my sources tell me that the state of play is exactly where it was. The Chinese will not admit to the cyber intrusions. They will not admit to stealing intellectual property, but they are willing to buy more soybeans from the United States. Do you think we'll get a deal?
Well, as you know very well, Maria, there can be a cosmetic deal. What's been discussed the last couple of days is there's apparently in the White House statement, there's an effort to move toward a memorandum of understanding. The Chinese statement about the talks last week say the same thing. The Chinese go a bit further. They use the word consensus, that a consensus has been reached. This could be very bad news because it could mean the Chinese are going to get away with a kind of agreement in principle to be better citizens of the world, but no enforcement, no monitoring, no punishment, and they could still play for time and try to keep the tariffs low or off entirely over the coming couple of years and hope for a new president. This has been what Vice President Pence warned about back in October, that China does not want Trump to continue as president for a second term because he's been so tough on China. This is part of his campaign promise. So this coming week is going to be awfully important. When the Chinese come here at the working level, Maria, we're going to try to find out, I think, what will be in this memorandum of understanding.
Right.
Will it have enforcement and time limits and, be tough, shall we say, or will it be a cosmetic agreement?
And when we get that memorandum of understanding, should we trust it? I mean, do you believe that if the Chinese say, yes, we will try to move the needle on IP theft, we will stop the constant hacking and the intrusions that this country gets, both, by the way, on a military standpoint as well as commercial, will they put that in the MOU, and will they actually follow through on it? Should we believe them?
Well, I think I can answer your question most tactfully by describing a couple of meetings I had over in Beijing, where I showed them Chinese translations of our government's two biggest complaints. That's the Peter Navarro study on 50 techniques China uses for what Peter calls economic aggression. Even bigger study is Bob Lighthizer long list of Chinese misconduct. It's over 1,000 footnotes. The Chinese told me in some very, very long, painful sessions, this is all false. They never do any of this. The government of China never condones this. And therefore, they can't really negotiate about it or put it in a memorandum of understanding because they're innocent. So in metaphorical terms, Maria, we're dealing with someone who some claim is a bank robber, and the bank robber is saying, no, I didn't do it. I was nowhere near at the time.
Should we be worried about the fact that China is one of our most important debtors? I mean, they're buying our securities. China and Japan hold so much treasuries. And I mentioned earlier to Congressman Kevin McCarthy that the fastest growing item in the budget over the next decade will be just interest on that debt. Interest payments will rise from $325 billion last year to $928 billion by 2029. That's $1 trillion. We're inching toward $1 trillion for the year as these interest payments. I mean, some people are saying it's $1 billion a day. That's what it's looking like up to 2029. So should we be worried that this fight is going to lead the Chinese to start selling our debt?
It's a possibility, but I think if you pay careful attention to the president's statements and tweets, his book 19 years ago about all this, he doesn't want a new Cold War with China.
Right.
He doesn't want to punish the Chinese economy. He certainly doesn't want to hurt our economic growth. He sees kind of a win-win situation here, especially in terms of American companies making profits in China.
Right.
Are saving our technology supremacy. That's extremely important, Maria. Are not letting China become the #1 power in the world through our complacency.
Right.
So he's got a lot of goals to balance, but the fear of China selling our treasuries, I think, is exaggerated.
Yeah, okay.
They really have no place else to put their money.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what the Chinese have said. We deem this as a safe investment. We don't have anywhere else to put it. Let me ask you this.
I think they're telling the truth in that case, yes.
The first $50 billion in terms of tariffs was on Chinese high-tech stuff, the areas where China wants to be #1 on. That was 25% 25% in tariffs. The next $200 billion is expected to start at 10%, but it could go up to 25%. Do you believe the president will delay the tariffs come this March 1st deadline or not? Real quick.
If I were to bet from his body language and his comments on Friday, I think he's interested in putting the tariffs at a higher level, going up to 25%. He's essentially giving the Chinese one last chance next week and then perhaps a short extension. He's giving them one last chance. But notice how the president always refers to the tariffs as bringing in revenue, billions of dollars of revenue to us.
Right.
So he is not somebody who's anti-tariff. He called himself tariff man, and I believe him.
Michael,
and that's brought the Chinese to the table, Maria.
Yes,
those tariffs have brought the Chinese to the table.
Michael, thank you so much. Michael Pillsbury.